And the company doesn't see any need to belong to an organization like ours or to bother with ethical standards. Their only concern is whether they're doing something legal or not, illegal or not. So my question is, to what extent do we open ourselves up through our concern? To what extent do we open ourselves up to competition that we cannot fight because the hoops that we make ourselves go through with respect to really simple things, not complicated ways of stealing and figuring out what people want? If it is true that somebody, by having answered a question, has given consent for that information to be used. I don't know if I phrased it correctly. But if your only problem is what governments say you can't do, and you can do really complex research with very simple questions in a way that's not misleading, to what extent are we making it impossible for ourselves to compete?
I can address that a little bit. I think the phenomena we're seeing in that space right now is the roads are being built, and as the accidents happen, then they're going to figure out where to put the traffic lights. So we're sort of observing some of that happening now. You see it in the news occasionally, and as these become popularized in the media, it scares the heck out of consumers, and it also scares companies. So what we're trying to do is make sure that at least there's some sandbox rules for this pavement that's going on before there's too many wrecks.
Anyone else on that one?
Yeah, if I may add to that, I generally don't agree with the sentiment that is sometimes expressed that privacy won't matter anymore in the future, that today's kids don't care about this. I think consumers are getting more and more aware of the issues, and somebody's going to legislate it about us. So, and we've seen, for instance, in the United States, that legislation happened directly from the state of California, so it didn't come from an industry. So ultimately, one of the major reasons for industry bodies to exist is to allow to self-regulate rather than to have a legislator come along and make a more stricter regulation. So in my view, it's a proposition that is of appeal maybe to these other companies coming from left field. Then again, I can understand that they may want to remain separate, but in the long term, I think it's in their interest as well to have this kind of self-regulation in place.
But in the meantime, they build up a massive installed base. I mean, if I look at the history of Facebook, it's essentially going as far as it can go before it gets into trouble. And then it changes just enough to stay within the law, but it collects information and